You have 48 hours to move out. This apartment is now Madison's, my father's text message read, landing on my phone screen at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning like a grenade thrown through my bedroom window. Your sister needs it more than you do. She's getting married and they need a place to live. Don't make this difficult. I stared at the message while my coffee grew cold, processing the audacity of someone demanding I vacate my own home, the home I'd purchased with my inheritance, lived in for 4 years, and maintained with my own money. But why did I smile instead of panic, and why, when my father and Madison arrived 48 hours later with a moving truck and a locksmith, did their confident expressions crumble into shocked silence? I have keys, my father announced, holding them up triumphantly. I made copies years ago when you first moved in. Those keys won't help you. I stepped onto the landing outside my front door, a manila folder in my hands. The locks were changed this morning. This is my property, Vivian. I can change the locks right back. Actually, this isn't your property. It never was. I opened the folder and handed him the ownership documents. This apartment was purchased with my late grandmother's inheritance. Directly to me. My name is on the deed. My name is on the mortgage. My name is on every piece of documentation the county recorder has on file. Madison, standing behind our father with an interior designer's color swatches in her hand, went pale. That's impossible, she said. You told me Dad owned this place and let Vivian live here rent-free. I told you what I believed, our father said slowly, reading the documents with increasing confusion. Mom said she was helping Vivian with housing after college. I assumed that meant a down payment on a rental deposit, or maybe covering first and last month. You assumed wrong. Grandmother left me $340,000 specifically designated for housing. I bought this apartment outright 4 years ago. It's mine. Completely and legally mine. Madison grabbed the papers from our father's hands, scanned them rapidly, and then threw her phone at the wall hard enough to shatter the screen. This is bullshit, she screamed. You stole my apartment. I bought an apartment with money that was left to me. There's nothing to steal because nothing was ever yours. The favoritism had been a pattern my entire life. Madison was the golden child, prettier, more social, more aligned with our parents' expectations of what a daughter should be. I was the quiet one, the studious one, the disappointment who preferred books to beauty pageants and coding to cheerleading. Our parents had made their preferences clear in 1,000 small ways throughout our childhood. Madison got the bigger bedroom. Madison got the newer car. Madison got the attention and approval that I learned early to stop expecting. Grandmother Elena had been different. She'd recognized something in me that my parents couldn't see, or wouldn't acknowledge. She'd encouraged my education, celebrated my achievements, and made clear that I was valued exactly as I was. When she died during my junior year of college, she'd left specific instructions for her estate. She'd known. Even then, she'd understood what my family was capable of. The apartment purchase had been handled quietly. I'd worked with an attorney and a real estate agent who had no connection to my family. I'd found a 2-bedroom unit in a converted brownstone, modest but beautiful, within my budget, in a neighborhood I loved. The purchase had been cash, no mortgage, clean and simple. My name on everything. No family involvement whatsoever. When I'd moved in, I'd made the mistake of accepting my father's offer to help with the move. He'd gotten access to the building, gotten keys copied without my knowledge, and apparently constructed an entire fiction about the apartment's ownership. I assumed your grandmother helped with the down payment, he'd said when I questioned his involvement later. The down payment on what? I own it outright. Well, the monthly expenses, then. The maintenance fees. Whatever. I'd let it go at the time, not wanting conflict. That had been my mistake. I'd assumed my father's confusion was innocent rather than deliberate. 4 years later, I understood, he'd convinced himself, and Madison, that the apartment was somehow his to give, his to control, his to redistribute according to his preference for his favored child. Madison's engagement had apparently triggered the attempted takeover. She'd been dating Derek for 2 years, a man with expensive tastes, inconsistent employment, and family money he'd mostly squandered. They wanted to get married. They needed somewhere to live. They couldn't afford anything in the city that met their expectations. Madison, being Madison, had found a solution: take what was mine. Dad, Vivian doesn't need that whole apartment to herself. She's single, she works from home, she barely even uses the 2nd bedroom. Derek and I need to start our life together somewhere, and that place is perfect. Your grandmother did help her with housing. So it's family property. And family should share. Make her move out so we can move in. She can find a studio somewhere. She'll be fine, she's always fine on her own. The logic was Madison's particular specialty, reframe taking as sharing, theft as fairness, her desires as family obligations. Our father, perpetually susceptible to Madison's manipulations, had apparently agreed to the plan without ever checking the actual ownership records. The confrontation on my doorstep escalated quickly. "This can't be right," Madison insisted, snatching the documents back and reading them again as if different words might appear. "Grandmother wouldn't leave you more than me. That's not fair. Grandmother left you her jewelry collection. The antique pieces, the diamonds, the vintage items she spent 60 years collecting. You sold most of it within a year of her death. That's different. You received approximately $80,000 from those sales. I received enough to buy a home because that's what grandmother specified. She knew what each of us needed and planned accordingly. She obviously wasn't thinking clearly. Old people get confused. She worked with an estate attorney and a financial advisor. Her will was witnessed, notarized, and has been upheld by probate court. Everything she did was deliberate." I took the documents back from Madison's hands. "This apartment is mine. Legally, completely, indisputably mine. You need to leave." "Dad." Madison turned to our father with the particular whine she'd perfected in childhood. "Do something." "She can't just." "She can." Our father's voice was quiet, defeated. "She owns the property. We have no claim to it." "Then we'll contest the will." Grandmother wasn't competent. The will was settled 4 years ago. The statute of limitations for contesting it has long passed. I opened my front door, stepped inside my home. "I'm sorry your wedding plans didn't account for actual housing costs. I'm sorry Dad made promises he had no authority to make. But none of that is my problem. Goodbye." I closed the door on their shocked faces and double-locked it from inside. The harassment campaign began within hours. Madison posted on social media about selfish family members and stolen inheritances. She called relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, spinning stories about my betrayal, and agreed. She texted me repeatedly, alternating between threats and tearful pleas. "You're destroying this family. Grandmother would be ashamed of you. If you had any decency, you'd share what you never earned." I documented everything without responding. My attorney had advised me to maintain records in case the situation escalated to legal action or property crimes. Our father called once, attempting reconciliation. "Vivian, maybe you could let Madison rent the apartment at a reasonable rate? Just until they get on their feet?" Madison showed up to take my home from me. She threw her phone at my wall and called me a thief. Why would I let her live here? She's emotional. She didn't mean. She absolutely meant every word. She's spent 32 years meaning everything she says and doing everything she wants because you and Mom have never held her accountable for anything. I took a breath, steadying myself. "I love you, Dad. But I'm not going to sacrifice my home to maintain Madison's expectations. She can find her own apartment like every other adult. She can't afford anything in the city. Then she should move somewhere she can afford, or adjust her expectations, or delay her wedding until she has appropriate resources. Those are adult decisions she needs to make for herself." "You're being cold." "I'm being realistic. There's a difference." The legal threats came 2 weeks later. Madison had apparently found an attorney willing to explore challenging my ownership. The letter alleged undue influence over our grandmother, improper distribution of estate assets, and demanded I surrender the property or face litigation. My attorney, Patricia Holloway, was unimpressed. "This is baseless harassment, not a legitimate legal strategy. The estate was settled years ago through proper probate proceedings. Your grandmother worked with independent counsel. There's no evidence of undue influence, you weren't even present when she drafted her will. So they can't take my apartment? They can't take anything. They can file frivolous lawsuits that cost everyone money and time, but they won't win." She set the letter aside. "What they're hoping is that you'll settle to avoid the stress. That you'll give Madison something just to make this go away. And if I don't? Then they spend money on legal fees for a losing case, and you document a pattern of harassment that might support a restraining order if necessary." Patricia smiled slightly. "Your grandmother was very thorough in her estate planning. She clearly anticipated something like this. The documentation grandmother Elena had left was comprehensive. Beyond the will itself, she'd written a letter explaining her decisions, a letter filed with her attorney and provided to me after her death. To my granddaughter Vivian. I've watched your family treat you as less than for your entire life. I've watched Madison receive everything while you receive expectations of gratitude for scraps. I've watched your parents favor one daughter over another for reasons that reveal their own limitations rather than your worth. I'm leaving you this money specifically for housing because I want you to have something no one can take away. A home of your own. A foundation that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or generosity. Buy something modest. Pay cash if possible. Put everything in your name alone. Don't tell your father the details. He'll find a way to redistribute what's yours to Madison, whether consciously or not. He loves you, but he loves her more obviously, and that imbalance makes him unreliable as a protector of your interests. You are not less than. You have never been less than. You have simply been surrounded by people who couldn't see your value. Build a life where you are seen, and don't apologize for protecting what you've built. With all my love, Grandmother Elena. Reading that letter again, for years after her death, I understood exactly what she'd been protecting me from. The lawsuit was filed and dismissed within 3 months. Madison's attorney withdrew when it became clear there was no viable case. The judge reviewing the preliminary motion described the filing as without merit and warned that continued frivolous litigation could result in sanctions. Madison was furious. Our father was exhausted. Our mother, who'd stayed uninvolved throughout the conflict, finally called me. Your sister is devastated. She had her heart set on that apartment. Her heart was set on taking my home. That's not the same as deserving it. You could have been more gracious. Found a way to share. Share what? My legal property? Should I also share my job, my car, my savings account? I kept my voice level. Madison wanted something that belonged to me. When she couldn't have it, she harassed me, defamed me publicly, and tried to sue me. I'm not the villain in this story, Mom. She's your sister. She's a 32-year-old woman who's never been told no. That's not my failing, it's yours. Grandmother saw it. She planned for it. She protected me from exactly what happened. The call ended without resolution. Most conversations with my mother ended that way. Madison's wedding happened 6 months later. I wasn't invited, which was fine. I heard through relatives that they'd found a rental apartment in a less prestigious neighborhood, that Derek's parents had contributed to the wedding costs, that Madison had complained throughout the reception about family betrayal. The marriage lasted 18 months. Derek's employment remained inconsistent. Their lifestyle expectations remained high. The math didn't work, and eventually neither did the relationship. Madison moved back in with our parents at 34, angry at the world and still convinced that everything wrong in her life was someone else's fault. My father reached out a year after the lawsuit dismissal. I handled everything wrong, he said over coffee at a neutral location. I made assumptions I shouldn't have made. I believed things Madison told me without checking. Yes, you did. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm asking if you can forgive me. What exactly are you apologizing for? For assuming the apartment was something I had rights to. For texting you that ultimatum without ever verifying ownership. For not standing up to Madison when she started harassing you. He paused. For 30 years of not seeing what your grandmother saw. For treating you as less than. The words hung between us. I can work on forgiving you, I said finally. It won't be quick. Trust has to be rebuilt. What about Madison? Madison showed up to take my home and called me a thief when she couldn't have it. She tried to sue me. She defamed me to our entire extended family. I shook my head. I have no interest in a relationship with someone who sees me as an obstacle to what she wants rather than a person with my own rights and worth. She's still your sister. Biology isn't relationship. You should know that better than anyone. You spent my entire childhood demonstrating it. He flinched, but he didn't argue. The apartment remains my sanctuary. For walls that belong to me, that no one can take, that represent everything my grandmother wanted me to have. Security. Independence. A foundation that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. I've built a career here, working remotely as a software architect. I've built friendships here, hosting dinners and game nights with people who value me. I've built a life here that my family never expected me to achieve because they never expected me to be anything but the disappointment they decided I was. Grandmother Elena knew better. Build a life where you are seen, she'd written. I've built exactly that. The text message still sits in my phone, saved as a reminder. You have 48 hours to move out. This apartment is now Madison's. My father sent that message believing he had the authority to evict me from my own home. Madison planned her wedding around the assumption that she could simply take what I'd built. They showed up with a moving truck and a locksmith, certain that I would crumble, comply, sacrifice my security for their convenience. They'd miscalculated completely. Not because I'm cruel or selfish or the villain they've tried to paint me as. But because my grandmother saw what they couldn't, that I was worth protecting, that I deserved a foundation of my own, that I was capable of standing firm when everyone expected me to fold. Check the county records, I'd told them. The county records show the truth. This apartment is mine. Legally, completely, indisputably mine. Madison can throw all the phones she wants. It won't change the ownership documents. He texted me at 6:47 a.m. with the audacity of someone who'd never checked the facts. You have 48 hours to move out. This apartment is now Madison's. They showed up with a moving truck and a locksmith, ready to claim my home for the golden child who'd always received everything. But my grandmother had seen the future clearly. She'd left me $340,000 specifically for housing, knowing exactly what my family would try to do. When I handed them the ownership papers, my name on the deed, my name on every document, my property legally and completely, Madison threw her phone at the wall. She'd planned her whole wedding around taking what was mine. She discovered instead that some things can't be taken, no matter how entitled you feel. Grandmother Elena made sure of that. She protected me from beyond the grave, and everything I have is exactly what she wanted me to keep.